Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for kind of watching. We got an update on two major winter storms that are going to bring feet of snow to portions of the northern United States as we go into the first couple of days of December. I've got all the details kind of right up, right? So they are joining me here on this Friday evening. We have a lot to talk about in this video. We're going to be going over all of the latest details on, again, our current major winter storm that we're tracking over portions of the upper Midwest. That's going to be bringing lots of snowfall into that region over the next couple of hours, but the second one that's going to bring some significant snowfall to the northeast. So, as always, we're going to start out here by taking a look at your current radar. And you can see, obviously, we only have one thing going on, but that one thing is quite significant. We have our winter storm starting to develop across portions of the upper Midwest as well as the high plains. Here you can see we have some snowfall breaking out across portions of central Iowa back into portions of the Dakotas. We are seeing some reports of, again, some icy roads and definitely some slick travel, so be sure to use extra caution if you do need to travel on those roadways. We have some rain developing across portions of the deep south out here into portions of northern Texas and Oklahoma. So, again, very wet commute as we get into our Friday evening and eventually into tomorrow. But all of this radar and this map will quickly fill with more precipitation, again, as we get into tomorrow morning when most of the moisture gets pulled up into that low pressure system, making the storm become much more stronger and more significant. So, we're going to be moving on here to your alerts here. You can see we do have quite a bit going on when we do have our winter storm warnings. They are going out for portions of northern and central Montana, back down through all of Iowa, southern Minnesota, portions of central and southern Wisconsin, southern Michigan, northern and central Illinois, northern Indiana, and extreme northwest Ohio. So a lot of areas are currently under winter storm warnings. I'll keep that up a little bit bigger so you guys can see that. But again, anywhere in that pink, that's where we do have the winter storm warnings. In that purple shade, this is where we have the winter weather advisories. So you're not quite seeing winter storm warning criteria snowfall, but you still are going to get pretty significant snowfall accumulation. So that is going out for portions of eastern Montana all the way through the Dakotas, all of southern Minnesota, northern Missouri, back into southern Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, and the rest of Michigan as well as the UP. So, again, a very large area and a very large chunk of the country is going to be experiencing some significant snowfall over the next couple of hours, and this is likely going to continue to happen as we get into the first couple of days of December, because, again, we do have that second storm we're going to be watching. And we do also have some lake effect snow warnings going out for portions of upstate New York, upstate Pennsylvania, and western New York State. So places off of Lake Erie like Pittsburgh, Erie, Pennsylvania, you guys are going to be talking about that significant snow, but also up towards, places off of Lake Ontario. So Watertown, any area near there, that's where we're going to be talking about the significant threat for seeing snow squalls and just very heavy bands of lake effect snow. We do also have some freeze watches going out for portions of the Texas Panhandle, actually just south of the Texas Panhandle out here into western Texas, and freeze warnings going out for northern Florida and southern Georgia. So you can see that the cold is really starting to, cause some impacts on the really all of the United States, and that will continue over the next couple of days. Again, as we get further into December, or in the first couple of days of December, I really do think that cold air is going to quickly take over most of the central and eastern United States. So we're going to start out here by looking at your NAM 3 cam model. This is your OOZ run, the overnight run, for the upcoming couple of hours here with our major winter storm that is bringing lots of snow. We've been talking about this for days now, but you can see as we're getting to this overnight hours, and eventually into tomorrow morning, you can see snow will quickly overspread the area. Again, really by midnight, we're going to be talking about a lot of heavy snow starting to fill the radar. So again, those areas that we saw in portions of, Nebraska and into Kansas, as well as northern Missouri, that haven't seen precipitation yet, that will quickly change. You can see lots of heavy snow starting to kind of, blanket the area. So Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, you guys are getting in on that snow, but all the way out towards Sioux Falls, Rapid City, Pierre, in South Dakota, you guys are also getting that snow. It looks like now Omaha is going to start out with snow as well as Lincoln, so I do think that we might have already seen our first flakes of the event in those areas, but that will likely continue to stay as snow again as we get deeper into tonight. But this is as we're getting into around 2 a.m. You can see snow will quickly start to move into areas a little bit farther out to the east. So places in extreme western Illinois is starting to get snow. So Peoria, Springfield, you guys are going to start out immediately with heavy snow. It's going to be like a wall of extremely heavy snow. Once the first leading bands come in, it is not going to slow down from there. It's just going to continue to, drop lots and lots of snowfall. But at this point, Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, you guys are in the thick of it. You're getting lots of snowfall coming down south of Minneapolis. So anywhere from really south of Minneapolis to Sioux Falls, all the way back through portions of western Illinois, you're going to be talking about very heavy snow already by 2 a.m. So again, just after midnight, while you guys are asleep, things are going to get pretty intense out there. But you have very heavy precipitation a couple hundred miles to east of where the low pressure center is. Very heavy rain all the way back down here into portions of southwest Missouri, northwest Arkansas, northeast Oklahoma. So again, that's inside our warm sector, but north of the warm sector, so places like Jefferson City, St. Louis, Springfield, okay, these are the areas that are going to see the heaviest amounts of snow. Now, is it going to be the snow totals that are going to be at the highest here? Probably not, because you're not going to see snow for the entire event, and it's also not going to be warm enough for all of that snow to stick. However, you are going to get very, very wet and heavy snow that's going to likely come in the form of large snowflakes out here if you're in northeastern Missouri or extreme southern Iowa. This is very close to where all of our moisture is packed into, and again, just because of how high that moisture content is, combining with all the cold air in place, that's going to allow for the recipe for, again, very, very wet but also heavy and large snowflakes, if that makes sense. And again, that is going to continue for at least a couple hours as we get into our post-midnight kind of time frame here. But this is as we're getting to a 5 a.m., so really just a couple hours before you guys are waking up. Snow at this point is moving into all of central Illinois. You're just now starting to get your first flakes in Chicago, but Springfield, you're now at this point getting heavy snow. But heavy snow is also working its way pretty far down into Missouri. We talked about how yesterday the models were being very lenient on the chances of seeing snow south of St. Louis. Well, it looks a lot better here on the latest NAM. This is the NAM that came in overnight. Tonight, you can see again the NAM is going for a period of very heavy snow into Jefferson City, approaching St. Louis at this point. You're not really dealing with too much mixing issues at this point, but Omaha, Lincoln, you're dealing with either very heavy snow or heavy freezing rain, but it's still snowing back here into Pierre, Sioux Falls, even into Rapid City. Again, you're getting the last couple instances of snowfall, but even into Minneapolis, there's a chance we could see a couple inches of snow from this event. And let's take this out to really when most of you guys are waking up, so we'll say about, 8 a.m. or so, and you can see again, the heavy snow continues to move off to the east. And at this point, this looks like a pretty solid-looking winter storm. Again, all of Iowa at this point is going to be seeing very heavy snow, but it's still snowing in and around St. Louis. Jefferson City has switched back to rain at this point, but portions of eastern Kansas, again, you can even see where the warm nose is kind of carving out that snow. This is where all of that moisture is getting pumped into. And the reason why we're seeing the snow change back to rain is because there's so much moisture and warm air coming out from the Gulf of Mexico that the warm nose is kind of pushing all that cold air to the north, and that allows for the temperatures to rise as we get into especially the morning hours. So you're going to go from snow to rain because the temperature, the outside temperature, is actually starting to get a little bit warmer due to all of that warm air coming up from the south. And that's what's, that's what's required for the storm to, have energy and to be able to produce precipitation. Is you need the warm and moist air. So in order to get snow, you do need some warm air at least nearby. And that's what we're going to see with this event. It's going to be jam-packed with a lot of moisture. So all of these flakes are going to be very large and heavy in character here. But again, this is as we're getting into about the late afternoon hours, you can see snow has moved into all of Wisconsin, portions of western Michigan. I mean, this is a very widespread storm, but even into portions of central Illinois, it is snowing like crazy. If you're in Cedar Rapids, Des Moines, Springfield, Peoria, I mean, it is absolutely ripping in these areas. North of St. Louis, you are getting huge snowflakes, but again, I'm going to keep saying it. When you have a saturated environment that's very close to the warm sector but also does have enough cold air nearby, you are going to see the very wet and heavy snow, and those snowflakes are going to be very, very large. And I do think that they could be potentially the largest some of you guys have ever seen. I really do think that this is a good environment for something like that to happen. But once we're getting into our sunset hours, this is 7 p.m., you can see our storm is working its way across the heart of the Midwest. You can see all of Chicago, or at least the Chicago area, is seeing snowfall from this, but snow is moving into places like Detroit, Cleveland, Cincinnati, even into portions of northern Kentucky. We can't rule out the instance of snowfall. Again, even back into Des Moines, you're still seeing snow from this, but the heaviest snow at this point would be over Chicago, Indianapolis, Milwaukee, and Detroit. Back farther to the west, places like Des Moines and Minneapolis, you guys are starting to see a little bit lighter snowfall, and really once we get into the evening hours, it'll start to diminish for those areas off to the west, but to the east, you're just getting warmed up here. So Pittsburgh, you're starting to see some snowfall from this, but now it's moving off the Great Lakes, and you can see that actually all of the cold air has wrapped in the backside of the low pressure system, so all of that cold air falls down, collapses to the south, and that allows for all of the warm air to get pushed off to the east, and all of that cold air to kind of stabilize in the area. So that cold front's going to really kind of secure itself in the way of this storm to the point where you're really not going to have any mixing issues for anybody that's getting precipitation. So at this point, again, this is getting into the very early morning hours of Sunday. You're going to be talking about all snow for, again, places like northern Indiana, Illinois, but all of Michigan. It's snowing like crazy up there, so Buffalo, even all the way up towards Syracuse. Again, these areas that are just now starting to see precipitation from this off to the east, you guys are going to get very, very heavy snow. But as we get into our Sunday afternoon, or really late Sunday morning, you'll see things finally do start to diminish as we get a little bit of a break in the precipitation. So there could still be some backside energy that could bring snow showers all the way down into places like, southwest Pennsylvania, eastern Ohio, and maybe into portions of southeast New York. Is it possible? Yes. But again, I would not be surprised if we see mostly rain back into portions of Delmarva, but there is a chance we could see a slight wintry mix or a freezing rain shower out here in a portion of northern Virginia. That is a possibility, because you do have a very strong cold front coming in on the backside, which we've mentioned constantly here. Again, that's going to allow for the atmosphere to cool down and allow for most of that precipitation to change to frozen precipitation. So I would not be surprised if we do actually get some freezing rain as far south as maybe even southern Virginia. Again, it really all depends on how quickly that cold air can settle in and cool down the environment. But we now look at the NAM 3K model for our total snowfall accumulations here. I think the NAM has been really solid on just the amount of snow that we're going to see in general from this storm. So again, this is the latest run from the NAM, the OOZ. This is the same run we actually just looked at here, but this is on the total snowfall accumulation parameter. The one we looked at was on the precipitation parameter, but you can see there's a solid signal still for quite a bit of snowfall. Again, we're talking about up to a foot of snow for all of Iowa here. If you go into portions of northern Missouri, you're still talking about that intense snowfall. However, it's not as widespread. So northern, especially northeastern Missouri, are talking about a good 8 to 10 inches. And look at this. There is a signal just north of St. Louis. The NAM is going for a little corridor here of up to 14 inches of snow, which is pretty wild considering that we're literally in November here. For St. Louis, the NAM is going for about 4 to 6 inches, which would be great for you guys. Again, yesterday it was not looking so great for St. Louis. Most of the models were saying that only an inch or two of snow is going to be possible at best. Now the models are trending a lot cooler, a lot colder, and just more snow in general. So I do think there's a chance that St. Louis could cash in a little bit better with this event. But all of Illinois in general is getting very significant snowfall from this, a solid 8 to 10 kind of signal here is what's in store. But southern Illinois, a little bit less down here. Again, that's kind of closer to where the rain snow line is, but still a solid 4 to 6 inches for our folks in south central Illinois. But southern Wisconsin, same thing there, 8 to 10 inches. Really, anywhere in this pink is 8 to 10 inches, but that purple and even that red, that's where we're talking about right around a foot of snow. But northern Indiana, you're also talking about 8 to 10 inches with places closer towards Chicago, maybe getting up to 10 inches of snow. Again, it really all depends on where the heaviest bands are going to set up. But even in the portions of central Michigan, we're still talking about 4 to 6 inches being possible here. And if we go up to Minneapolis, I saw you guys were also expected to see a little bit of snow from this event. I would say only 1 to 2 inches. However, if we do see the storm set up a little bit further to the north than expected, maybe we'll see higher totals. But again, really 1 to 2 inches is expected. Omaha and Lincoln, Nebraska, about 6 to 8 inches. But yeah, that's pretty much it for your snowfall totals. So, that's it for the first storm. Now we look at the second storm. We've been referring this to Winter Storm B. This is the one that's going to be impacting portions of the Ohio Valley and eventually the Northeast. So, we're going to start out by looking at the 12Z European model. Let's actually switch this to the 18Z since we have a new run. But you can see as we're getting into this is as we're getting to Monday of next week, so all of you are going to be returning to school if you do attend school. You can see that we are going to be talking about, again, a surface low that will start to work its way up the East Coast. It's actually going to develop much further to the south, and you'll notice that we do have lots of cold air in place. Our 540 line is pretty much dipped down into the Delmarva region. You actually already do have some snow developing on the north side where this precipitation is, so there's a chance we could see a little wintry mix, including sleet, freezing rain, and snow. As far south as Nashville, Tennessee, but lots of rain here for the southeast. I mean, this is an absolute washout here. Heavy rain all the way back down to places like Montgomery, Alabama, Atlanta, Tallahassee. You guys are going to be talking about, again, pretty much the same story here, just a lot of heavy rain. But we put this in motion once again, and you can see the storm does pop off a 1,008 millibar low pressure system, or center, I should say. And you can see that it is starting to look much nicer here as far as what the winter weather side of this is going to be. However, the European model has trended much farther south with this, which would also bring a much more suppressed storm system, basically meaning that the cold air stays in place for a longer period of time for our folks out here in the New England and Northeast area, and that low pressure system stays a little bit farther south, bring that zone of precipitation, that wintry precipitation, farther south. So you do actually see some snowfall into portions of the I-95 corridor. So it's snowing in Boston, Bridgeport, Connecticut, and even into New York City. You're talking about the potential for a snow-sleet mix. I do think that, again, there is still a lot of disagreement between the European and the GFS on where exactly that rain-snow line is going to set up, but it does want part of the I-95 corridor, including coastal regions, to actually see snow from this. It is an outlier at this point. It's still, not set in stone that we're going to see snow, but the European is sticking to its guns here, continues to show, again, that more southern scenario with that rain staying south, but there's a chance also if this were to play out that we get an instance or two of snow in places like Baltimore, Philadelphia, Trenton, and especially back here into Hartford, Bridgeport, and Harrisburg, where, we're a little bit more confident in just that we are going to see snow and potentially even measurable snow from the system. But the European model does actually want a much less significant storm system, but it actually even does bring some backside snow and heavy precipitation into coastal New England regions, so southern Maine all the way back down here through New Hampshire, Vermont, and into the rest of southern New England. Again, a sleet/snow mix is definitely going to be possible. This is as we're getting into Tuesday and eventually into Wednesday morning, so really as we're getting to Tuesday night. Again, there's a possibility this could switch over to sleet and freezing rain for some areas before it moves on out, and it will actually become a very strong, potentially bomb cyclone for our folks out here in Atlantic Canada. So Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, you guys will be talking about extremely heavy snowfall. I mean, that gets down to a 958 millibar low pressure system. So it is absolutely ripping out there for our folks in Nova Scotia and St. John's, Halifax. You guys are definitely going to get a lot of snowfall from this. So again, that is a very impactful storm just a little bit later on that run of the European. Now we look at the GFS here. This is the GFS 18Z, and I want to show you guys how different this is. So you can see the GFS already has this much farther north, and it actually does have this becoming stronger a little bit earlier. But you can see it's already starting to produce widespread precipitation as we're getting into the December 1st to December 2nd time frame. But we do have a very large warm sector here with lots of rain falling across portions of the southeast. So Montgomery, Atlanta, all the way up towards Nashville and Knoxville, you're talking about heavy rain. Again, the European model had a much more suppressed storm system, which means a little bit farther to the south, and the rain snow line was all the way down to here. So that is a huge difference between the the GFS and the European model on where that rain snow line could set up with this next storm system. But it is snowing in portions of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and back into Missouri. So those areas that are about to see a lot of snow from that first storm system, you guys could get another additional couple inches with this next one. So that could even prompt some winter weather advisories. I would not be shocked if some of these areas see, again, a couple inches of snow from that second system, but this continues to further develop, and you can see it does actually intensify here. The GFS wants a much more amplified storm here, a lot less suppressed in the European model. You can see it does not really have a problem bringing all of that warm air to the north, so the warm nose gets right in front of the storm system, allowing for a much stronger storm, again, with a better moisture return. And you still get lots of snow up here to the north. It's snowing pretty hard in Cincinnati, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, up towards upstate New York. Again, I think that you guys are pretty much set in stone for a very nice winter storm, but you are getting mixing issues to the south. So DC, places to the south of Pittsburgh, Charleston, places to the north of Richmond, you're talking about a freezing rain / sleet mix. And you look at New York City, I mean, you guys are going to struggle. If this scenario plays out, you guys would struggle heavily on getting snow. Again, the 18Z GFS brings that rain snow line pretty much right on top of Interstate 95, but you're all rain for Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Trenton, and even in New York City. Again, it's going to be very hard to get snow from this kind of, setup here, but that low pressure center is cutting very close to the coastline here, bring all of that snow much farther north, and you even do get mixing issues as far west as Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which has not been an area we've been worried about for mixing issues, but you're talking about widespread freezing rain across Pennsylvania here. And that low pressure center cuts right across Delmarva, and I mean it's sitting over New Jersey at this point, which is just going to allow for all of that rain and very wet, moist air to move into those areas a little bit farther to the north. Again, bring lots of warm air into the region, which is just not going to help our chances for seeing snow. So that pushes our rain snow line way up to the north, and that pretty much allows for places like Syracuse, Albany, Concord, Burlington, Augusta, Bangor, Portland, and Boston to see the heavier snow totals, while places like Bridgeport, New York, and Trenton struggle to see snow at all, and you see either freezing rain or just plain old very heavy and wet rain, and or cold rain, I should say. And it continues to intensify as it moves off to the northeast, very in line with what the European was showing, except for just the direction of this. And the funny thing is that it's so different, the GFS and the European model, that it actually doesn't even show snow for Atlantic Canada. It actually has all rain for Halifax and Nova Scotia, and that's the same for Newfoundland. So what I want to point out is that the GFS and the European model, they are so different, but we're only 100 hours out. Okay, so this is literally something that almost never happens when we're talking about weather forecasting. The GFS and the European model are disagreeing heavily on pretty much everything about this storm. Again, how strong it's going to be, where it's going to be impacting, and how much snow it's going to be producing. They're all disagreeing on, everything here, but that is pretty wild stuff to see. I don't know if we can compare the GFS and the European side by side. I don't think so, but again, very, very different runs here by the European and the GFS on just what could happen with this storm system. I do want to point out what's pretty wild. The GFS literally has a low pressure system or low pressure center tracking through southern New Jersey, while the European model has it going off the coast of the Carolinas. That is a huge difference here. So a lot can change, a lot can happen, but I do think there's still a chance that places on the East Coast, especially the New England coastline, could still end up with a little bit of snow from this event. So For the last part of the update, we will compare the European and the GFS for your snow totals. This is the European model. You can see we do have a pretty good stripe here of 6 to 8 inches of snow for portions of southern New England here. I mean, southeastern Massachusetts, it was a really big snow event here, which is not in line with really a lot of models here. This is actually an outlier, but lots of snow for southeastern Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, same story there. But you look at New York City, a good 3 inches of snow here on the European model. Philadelphia, 4 to 6. Trenton, also 4 to 6. So a very nice corridor here of a good 3 to 6 inches across portions of southern New England. And again, the rest of the Northeast, while the interior Northeast gets a little bit less snow due to just the full compression of the storm due to the cold air. But again, still a pretty impactful winter storm, especially for our folks out on the coastline. And then finally, we look at now the GFS model. Very different. The GFS completely inland here. It throws all of those snow totals again into the very interior Northeast, but you still do get lots of snow for our folks in upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, into Maine. We're talking about well over a foot of snow for these areas, but northern and central Pennsylvania, you're talking about potentially 8 to 10 inches, but Albany, you're getting over a foot with this storm. If this scenario were to play out, so again, this would be basically what the scenario for a much more, amplified storm system and a much more northern tracking storm system would look like. Now, if a southern tracking storm system came to fruition, we would see much more like what the European is showing, where we'd see less snowfall totals just in general, but definitely more snow towards the coastline. So that's gonna wrap the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button below, and make sure you let me know where you're tuning in from. I'd love to hear which areas might see snow just based off of who's watching my videos. But hope you guys enjoyed the snow. Hope you guys have a great day and a good rest of your break, and I will see you guys in the next video.